First, I would like to thank the organizers, specifically Dr. Longbaugh, for providing me the opportunity to take part in this very exciting event. Up to here, a number of talks was presented on macro policy and production and supply aspect of food system. What I'm going to present now is going to be more focused on micro level and consumption and consumer aspect of food system, which has effect on the total food system and being influenced in capable individuals, communities, and nations. In this regard, children and adolescents are important target groups, as many of the dietary behaviors and food choice skills are shaped during this period of life, which tracks into adulthood. With this regard, and in order to have behavioral change strategies, and considering the multidimensional nature of eating, we are dealing with new concepts that takes of behavioral change and content of what the consumer needs to learn and practice in order to have proper dietary habits. Yet, there is no shared understanding of food and nutrition literacy concept and its components. Neither there are accepted tools and methods to measure it. There have been some definitions separately going on for food literacy and for nutrition literacy, that there is no consensus around them. Besides the components and specific topics that should be covered by them are under investigation. There have been some other definitions that have been based on previously existing models of health literacy, specifically the one proposed by NotBeam, that also proposes different levels of literacy in nutrition and also food, which includes progressive levels of literacy, including functional, interactive, and critical aspects of literacy with regard to food and nutrition. Having said that, we got interested to conceptualize food and nutrition literacy and its components and come up with the proper measures to be able to evaluate the nutrition and food literacy of elementary school children in Iran. And it is part of a larger study that is going to be expanded and is actually now going on adolescents as well as adults in further steps. To do this study, we went through different phases, including development of a conceptual model based on national experts as well as international literature. And based on that, developing and validating a measurement tool to be able to measure the food and nutrition literacy level of the primary school children as a basis for further interventions. For the first level, in order to define a conceptual model, we went through extensive review of literature and qualitative studies through interview with experts and focus group discussions with students. And we came up with identification of a list of dimensions and components that could be included as required for food and nutrition literacy. And by refining this list, we developed an item pool that could be used for further development of the tool. In the second phase, we used this item pool for and developed a 94-item questionnaire, which then went through content validity by the experts and face validity by experts and students. And then we applied it among a group of students for construct validity first for exploratory factor analysis was done to do an exploratory and to learn about the constructs and see how the constructs will align with what we had as the main model. And then we did another study to do a complementary factor analysis and make sure that the construct is being approved when we apply it with different group of population. We also did internal consistency and test-retest reliability tests to make sure that in different application of the questionnaire, we will get similar results. At the end, we had a 49-item food and nutrition literacy questionnaire. We used the questionnaire in a population-based cross-sectional survey, and through multi-stage random cluster sampling, we studied around 800 boys and girls, school-age children, to find out about the level of their food and nutrition literacy and some of the demographic and socioeconomical correlates to be able to come up with a determinants, find out what would be the recommendations for future interventions. What we found was that based on the qualitative phase of the study, there are two domains that could be identified based on students and experts' view, the cognitive and skill domain of the food and nutrition literacy, and we use both terms, food and nutrition, as one entity. With regard to cognitive aspects, the knowledge and understanding were popped up as separate domains or subdomains that needed to be evaluated. Also, with regard to skills, we use the same model of knot beams, and it was approved that there are functional aspects or literacy level with regard to knowing how to access information and being able to apply them, as well as another aspect, which is food choice. With interactive skills, we were looking at interactive, emotional, and discussion skills, as well as the critical level or critical literacy, which was related to media literacy, analysis of food labeling and being able to use food labels, and the ability to make decisions and plan for diet and food to be chosen. So for the second phase, we came up with a 46-item food and nutrition questionnaire that, as I mentioned, its content and its phase was evaluated in terms of validity. Through the construct validity stage, we identified different levels of literacy that was already there in the questionnaire, and we wanted to make sure that all these levels are being approved through the survey. Knowledge and understanding was there for the cognitive domain, and with regard to the skill domain, in addition to all three critical, interactive, and functional aspects, one more level of literacy was added for children that was not before in the literature, which was food choice skills, and we separated that in scale, and we measured it separately, as well as interactive and critical skills. The construct could define more than 50% of the variance, which more than 2/3 of it was defined by the skill domain. Complementary factor analysis approved that the model has acceptable fit indices for and could be used and applied with more confidence. Also, Chromebox Alpha and ICC approved that the scale is reliable in different applications. Then we measured the food and nutrition literacy of the students in a representative sample of students in Tehran Metropolitan, and identified some of the determinants. Based on what we found, the overall score of food and nutrition literacy of the students was within the average range, while the The scores were mainly related to the cognitive domain, and they scored very low in the skill domain. Looking at the subdomains that would progressively go from knowledge up to the critical and food label analysis, you can see that how low grades are increasing. We came up with some of the correlates of higher risk for inadequate food and nutrition literacy, including some ethnic groups had lower literacy, having a housewife mother, mothers with lower education, students in the public schools as opposed to private schools, higher family size, and having older parents were all some of the correlates that could act as risk factors. We also evaluated some of the linking socioeconomical status, and based on the SEM evaluation, among the socioeconomical and demographic factors, school type, family size, mother's occupation, mother's education and age, as well as father's age were some of the main determinants that should be considered. This study contributes knowledge to the field by attempting to provide a common language around food and nutrition literacy. A wide range of skills were identified as required for nutrition literate children. The conceptual model of food and nutrition literacy and its subscales and socio-demographic determinants proposed a framework to guide future interventions and policies to promote food and nutrition literacy in children. The findings suggest that food and nutrition literacy is influenced by culture and socioeconomic factors that needs to be taken into account in understanding, measurement, and intervention design to improve food and nutrition literacy. We came up with a valid instrument that needs to be modified in different communities and needs to be further elaborated with regard to food preparation aspects and sustainability-related factors. With regard to Iran's context, higher level of food and nutrition literacy in cognitive domain and poor scores in skill domain indicates the need for revising nutrition-related curriculums. This made us to do a content analysis of primary school textbooks in Iran, which showed that the nutritional content was limited and mainly theoretical without any hands-on experience approach. Advocacy for practical and effective strategies to develop and promote food and nutrition skills among the students is recommended, and we are now planning for such a meeting with policymakers and planners in the coming months. The need for continuous improvement in health and nutrition education curriculum of school and communities, as well as development of teaching materials, particularly emphasizing food system approach and practical food and nutrition skills to promote food and nutrition literacy should be considered as a critical component of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Nasrin. I think if there is any question, we can take just one. Anybody? Okay, thank you, Dr. Nasrin. If not, thank you very much. Next, we move on to the common errors in dietary assessment between diet and disease, and Dr. Jane.
Yes, thank you. I also want to thank the organizers for inviting me to discuss with you the measurement error in dietary assessment. Don't get my presentation.